After 7 hours on a bus and an encounter with a very inquisitive border officer at the Canadian US crossing, we finally arrived in New York for a long weekend. A present from my aunt and uncle for my 20th birthday. I had been given a choice: a trip to Halifax or the Big Apple. Today, I would probably choose Nova Scotia without hesitation. But back then, as a young woman from an ex communist country, Halifax was just a name and not a particularly exciting one, especially since it was my very first time on the other side of the Atlantic. I didn't hesitate for a second. I was dying to see the Empire State Building, the Twin Towers, and of course to take a photo with the Statue of Liberty in the background. My travel dreams were coming true. Even if traveling with my almost 70-year-old aunt wasn't exactly what I had imagined. Still, I was deeply grateful for the generous gift and the opportunity to see a part of the big world. Our hotel was Chinese owned and, to our surprise, undergoing renovation. The location, however, was excellent, just southwest of Fifth Avenue and within walking distance of the Empire State Building. The noise and the lack of hot water on our first day were not ideal, but I was far too excited to worry about such petty inconveniences, or about not being able to take a proper shower after the long journey from Montreal. I was ready to explore. There we were, me with a Kodak camera and my aunt with a Michelin guide in her hand. We headed south towards Pier 15, where we planned to find a boat trip around Manhattan, on foot, of course. We wanted to see as much as possible, and I wanted the freedom to stop and take pictures. We walked through Little Italy, past countless pizzerias and gelato parlors that reminded me of my childhood memory of the pistachio ice cream I had once hated in Lido di Jesolo near Venice. I was still strangely indifferent to sweets. Instead, I found myself drawn to the addictive smell of garlic frying in olive oil that floated through the streets. Experiencing Italy on a different continent was quite something. We had eaten breakfast early that morning and were starting to feel hungry. Having lunch before boarding the boat seemed like a good idea, especially since we had just entered Chinatown where there were plenty of interesting options. After my visit to Pauline, my foodie aunt in Burlington a few weeks earlier, I was slowly becoming a young foodie myself, fascinated by the cuisines of the world. Unlike the aunt I was traveling with, who preferred traditional European food, I was drawn to the exotic looking restaurants and eager to try whatever they served. She would probably have preferred an Italian place, but by then we were too far to turn back. Almost every other shop was a restaurant or a bar, and without TripAdvisor reviews, which we are so used to today, it was difficult to decide where to go. Everything looked equally colorful and equally tacky. After wandering through the busy streets for a while, we finally made our choice. The menu was long, but I already knew what I wanted: the famous duck with orange sauce. I had seen it many times before, but had always chosen something more exotic. Usually seafood, my latest culinary discovery. My aunt ordered a chicken dish. It didn't take long before our lunch arrived, accompanied by 2 bowls of plain white rice. To my surprise, my aunt didn't start eating. She seemed to be waiting for something. The waiter quickly noticed her puzzled expression and approached the table. "Can I help you with anything else, ma'am?" "Yes," she said calmly. "I'd like some bread." "Bread?" The waiter's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "What do you mean, bread? You got rice." My aunt remained firm. "I know, but I want bread as well." She spoke with a strong Polish accent, rolling the R in every word, while the waiter seemed to swallow the ends of his sentences. The whole situation was both hilarious and slightly embarrassing. It reminded me of a scene from Fawlty Towers. I knew my aunt and uncle rarely ate in restaurants, and when they did, it certainly wasn't in Chinese ones. I tried explaining to her in Polish that rice was their equivalent of bread, but she continued insisting. Meanwhile, Several staff members gathered around our table, discussing lively in their own language what to do with the stubborn elderly lady demanding a baguette. My aunt remained completely serious. I slowly enjoyed my duck while the bread crisis unfolded. Eventually, she realized that bread simply wasn't going to appear and that she would have to eat her chicken with rice. As it turned out, that wouldn't be the only food drama we experienced in New York. The boat trip around Manhattan was impressive and ticked my first sightseeing box, the Statue of Liberty. The next day promised even more. My aunt had prepared an ambitious itinerary: Wall Street, the Twin Towers, Rockefeller Center, and, as the grand finale, a night visit to the top of the Empire State Building. We started early again. This time, the Michelin guide stayed in the hotel. I had refused to walk extra kilometers just to see houses that were only slightly older than the one I grew up back in Poland. Apparently, the subway was considered unsafe, so we relied entirely on our feet. By late afternoon, we were exhausted and starving. With the prospect of staying awake until 11:30 p.m. for the night tour, we desperately needed food. We walked along Fifth Avenue, surprised by how few restaurants there were. After quite a long search, we finally spotted a Korean one. Not exactly my aunt's preferred cuisine, but at least it meant we wouldn't go hungry. The place was full of Asian customers, which felt like a good sign. We sat down with relief. I quietly hoped that bread would not be requested this time. There were not many dishes on the menu. Most people seemed to be eating enormous pancakes with various toppings, something like a slightly floppy pizza. They looked appealing enough, so we ordered one each. A few minutes later, a friendly Korean waitress arrived with two large plates and a big pair of scissors. Without hesitation, she began cutting the pancakes into pieces. My aunt looked deeply puzzled. I could see what she was already wondering. How would I eat this with chopsticks? Even the Chinese restaurant had provided cutlery. Her eyes scanned the room until she caught the attention of another waitress. "Do you need anything, ma'am?" "Yes," my aunt replied politely. "I would like a knife and fork, please." The tiny Korean lady looked completely baffled. "I'm afraid we don't have any." "What do you mean?" my aunt almost shouted. "You don't have knives and forks in a restaurant?" "No, ma'am, but I'll double check." I didn't even try to convince my aunt to eat the pancake with chopsticks or with her hands. While I happily devoured mine, holding each piece and biting around it, the staff began a determined search for a Western eating utensil. And they found one: a single plastic fork. My aunt's eyes lit up as if she had just won the lottery. In the end, she even admitted that the pancake was surprisingly tasty. Unfortunately, our luck didn't last very long. On the way to Empire State Building, she tripped on the pavement and fell badly. As it turned out later, she had broken 3 ribs. But that's another story.